Beautiful lighting. Oh, oh, so bright. Oh, it's going away. No. Okay, as usual, the lighting in this is not gonna be all that great. I'm gonna be looking like a ghost for half of the time, depending on where I am. But that's fine, you know, this is not a professional channel. What I want to talk about today is a question that I've been asked by some people, and that question is, what do you need if you want to live in Japan as a foreigner? I feel like a lot of people are very hesitant, or they think you need to know all of these things if you want to live here, and I feel like a lot of people are too nervous. Like, it's really fine, but there are some things that will help you if you want to live in Japan, so I will tell you those things right now. So I think the number one thing that people really need to realize before they move to Japan is that they will always be an outsider. This might sound kind of extreme, but it's something that I know a lot of foreign people who live in Japan struggle with. Because I guess it's not fun to be looked at as an outsider, but it's just the way it is. Take me for example. I think I'm a good example because I don't look Japanese at all. From first glance, people know that I'm not from here. Even if I were born here, people would assume I'm not. And no matter how fluent my Japanese gets, no matter how well I cook Japanese food or how well I know the customs, it doesn't matter how much I learn, it's never going to make me an insider, if you know what I mean. I'm always going to be looked at as an outsider. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing, like I don't see anything wrong with that, I just think that's the way it is. And I think the sooner you realize that, like when I walk down the street, I know people are gonna be looking at me. When I go into a store, maybe people will speak English to me instead of Japanese, even though I've lived here for years, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm not one of them. If you don't look Japanese, you're not gonna fit in. It's something you're gonna have to deal with. You're gonna have to deal with people staring at you, looking at you, treating you differently. I'm saying this one first because I do think it's the most important one, because I know friends that were really frustrated living in Japan because they didn't want to be treated as an outsider. It might frustrate you as well, and I just want to warn you that if you come to Japan, that's how it's going to be. So yeah, that is a number one. The second thing I want to talk about is quite obvious. It's the language. If you're here on vacation and you're just doing some touristy things, I don't think you need to per se know the language. I think it's definitely handy to know some basic Japanese, you know, how to say hello and goodbye and thank you and that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't hurt to learn a little bit, but you don't have to worry too much. However, if you're going to live here for a longer period of time and you're going to be, you know, doing your grocery shopping here and doing, you know, your daily life here, in that case, I do think you should at least make an effort to learn the language. Even if you're going to be in an area where there's going to be a lot of foreigners. If you're living in an international dormitory with a lot of people from all over the world, I still think it's very helpful to learn Japanese, or, you know, at least the basic. I can assure you that learning basic Japanese is not that hard. I know it sounds very, very hard, but like, if I can do it, anyone can do it, I swear. Don't worry about the writing or anything like that, because I know that's the most intimidating. Just focus on speaking and learning how to like introduce yourself, learning, you know, that kind of stuff. In a couple weeks you can like learn like some basic stuff and just go from there and just talk to people in Japanese, and you will get better so quickly. So don't be scared to start learning. And I'm not just saying learn the language because then you can, you know, go to the grocery store. I'm saying learn the language because you will feel much more at home in a country where you can speak the language. I know that whenever I travel, like for example when I go to Korea or something like that, the moment I arrive in Korea, I feel very alienated. I feel very much, because I don't understand what people around me are saying, and it kind of, I don't know, it makes me feel a little bit anxious. And if you're gonna live in Japan and everyone around you is speaking a language that you don't understand at all, I think it's gonna be hard for that place to feel like home. And so that's also just a big reason why I think you really should learn the language. Like, it's for your own peace of mind, you know what I mean? There are so many ways you can learn a new language. I know a lot of people that are using Duolingo. I don't really know how it works, but a lot of people have told me good things about it. There's many YouTube videos as well that teach you Japanese. And I think once you get the basics, I think the best thing is to just speak with Japanese people. If you're going to school, make friends at school. If you're working here, it'll be colleagues or, you know, even your neighbors. Like, talk to people and you will get better so quickly. But yeah, I think I'm gonna ask my friends who are learning Japanese what they recommend, and I'm gonna put some links that you can check out if you want to learn the basics. Then, number 3. This one might be a little bit strange, but knowledge of your own country. I was not prepared for this. When I came here, I didn't know people would be so interested in my country, but when you come to a new country, you're going to be meeting a lot of new people, and you know, in those first conversations, a lot of the time they're going to ask, where are you from? You're going to say where you're from, and then they're going to ask a lot of questions about your country. And like, I'm from Belgium. I never really gave much thought about the country I lived in. Like, I didn't really know much about my own country, to be honest. And now I feel kind of embarrassed for that, but honestly, I just didn't. And then when people asked me all these questions, I was like, wow, I have no idea what my country is known for or what my country's sightseeing spots are. Like, I didn't know. And I've learned over time, like now I know exactly what to say because I've had the conversation so many times. I just think that it would be handy to know a lot about your own country so that you can talk about it, because you will be talking about your own country a lot. Which brings me to number 4, which is good manners. I know this sounds a little bit lame, but everyone in this country is just so polite and kind and just proper. Like, people don't litter, people don't steal things, people don't fool around on the street unless it's like drunk people at night and stuff like that. Like, there's exceptions, but mainly people are really, really well behaved. And I don't know, sometimes I see foreigners and they're just acting really rude, which maybe in my home country would just be like, oh yeah, they're just, you know, teenagers having fun. A lot of these things are just not done in Japan. I'm talking about stuff like yelling really loudly at each other on the streets, or like fighting in the street, or cutting in line. Just things that generally in most countries are kind of rude. Just especially don't do them in Japan. Like, just behave like a decent human being and you'll be fine. I feel so lame for saying this and for pointing this out because I'm just telling you to be a decent human being. But the reason I'm saying this is because the Japanese people, the people who live here, they don't see many foreigners. So when they see foreigners, they'll be looking at them. And if they then see them acting really rude, you're an example for all foreigners. If they see one foreigner do something really bad, like litter or something like that, their perception of foreigners in general will be like, they're dirty people, they litter. And I speak from personal experience. Like, Japanese people have told me this, like, they see one foreigner do something and they think all foreigners do this thing. So if they, for example, see you throw, I don't know, a bag of chips on the ground, they might think that that's a normal thing for foreign people to do. And I don't know, I just think that's not very nice. Basically, just know that you are going to be an example for foreign people, so you might want to set a good example. Oh, and on the note of good manners, do your garbage right. That is something that is so important in this country, and it kind of terrifies me. Like, if you do it the wrong way, it's like not okay. Like, your neighbors will tell you. Be prepared for really complicated garbage disposal things. Another one, people have asked me whether you need chopstick skills. I don't know. You don't necessarily need them. You can usually ask for a fork and a knife. Like, when my mom comes to Japan, she will eat noodles with Western cutlery. Like, she will ask for it and she will literally eat her noodles like it's spaghetti. And yeah, she gets stared at for it, but like, it's fine. Other than that, I think once again, like, it's something you just pick up, you learn really fast when you're here. So don't worry about chopstick skills. And then the last thing a lot of people ask me is just about cultural things in general, like what things not to do, what things are, really rude in Japan. Because there's all these stories, right, of like, oh, you can't sneeze in public, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's true, it's true that there's many of those like little tiny rules of things you just don't do in Japan, or things that are deemed as rude. But in general, what I would like to say about that is that it's not that big of a deal. If you forget to take your shoes off in someone's house, nobody's gonna like hate you for it. And this is because you're a foreigner. You know, what we talked about in the beginning, you are an outsider. This is where that outsider thing comes in handy. Because you're an outsider, you are easily forgiven for things like that, because it's just like, how would you know? You're not from around here, you don't know these things. So really, I would say don't worry about it, like don't stress about it, because I know a lot of people tell me like how stressed they are of like doing something wrong in Japan. Generally, like people are nice and people will just tell you if you do something wrong and be like, oh, actually you're supposed to do this or whatever. Really, like don't worry about it. I have made a list of some of the like the biggest ones that I feel like I need in my daily life, so I'll tell you about those if you want to hear. Obviously, the taking off your shoes thing, you do this when you go to someone's house, you do this when you go into a temple, and sometimes you do it in restaurants as well, but usually you will, at the income hall thing, you will see where you can put your shoes, and then you'll know like, oh, I have to take my shoes off. So that's fine. Another good one is you shouldn't talk on your phone in the train. That's something that I know a lot of people really like, they will stare at you really angrily if you do this. Like if you're in a train and someone's phone goes off, you can tell that everyone's always like, oh my god, someone's phone just went off. And then usually the person will get off at the next station and then pick up his phone. I have seen some rare occasions where a Japanese person has talked on the phone in a train, but literally the entire wagon is like giving him the stink eye and being like, that's something that people take seriously here. Another thing is don't eat or drink on the train. I mean, if you want to have a sip of water, that's fine, but like if you take out a bag of chips and start eating it on the train, like that's really rude. I have seen teenagers do it, but they're just like, you know, they're like the cool teenagers who are like, I don't give a shit, I'm eating my bag of chips kind of thing, and they do get looked at. Another thing, there's no tipping in Japan. When you go to a restaurant, you don't have to tip your waiter, it's always included. When you're eating with chopsticks, never pass food from your chopstick to someone else's chopstick, because this is something people do at a funeral service only, and so it's kind of a morbid thing to do. Also, putting your chopsticks in your rice standing up like that apparently is not okay. But yeah, those are some of the ones that I can think of. But yeah, don't worry about it. My mother-in-law has corrected me on multiple occasions and like it's fine. Like she's not angry at me. I'm an outsider. That's what it comes down to. So I think those are all the things I would give as advice to people who want to come here. I'm sure I've missed some things. What do people need to live in Japan?
Come to Osaka. You don't go to Tokyo. In train, you have to let people in the train go out first before you get in. If you are not walking up the elevator, you have to stay on the right side. It's as well in Tokyo. You really have to like, you know, make a line when you're waiting for something, like a train, bus. Just know that like people don't really speak Japanese, I mean English here. But people are kind. What's your problem, honey? What's your biggest problem like while you're living in Japan?
Being vegan?
Vegan? Yeah, I have no idea about it. Don't be it. Oh, if you want to buy manga, you should go to book market or like a book of second-hand bookshop. You can have like a full set of manga for like a 50%. So good. Don't come in summer. It's too hot, too humid. That's all from me. That's all from me.
If there are any questions that you still have about living in Japan, like, I don't know, housing or finding a job or something like that, just leave them in the comments below or send me a message, whatever, and I will answer that. I am so distracted by the whiteness of, God. So that is going to be it for today. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed, give it a like, and subscribe if you want to. Yeah, I think that's it. I will see you in my next video. Bye bye!